Remember forever ago when I suggested, hey, let's do more regular dives into the virtual mailbag, perhaps once a week, maybe even once every 2 weeks? Well, it's been almost exactly 5 weeks since we last got together for Don't Read the Comments, so I'm done making promises that I can't keep. Well, maybe even that's a promise I can't keep. Who knows? The point is, I'm just going to get to these whenever I can. Now, I do read your comments as they come in, as much as I can keep up with them. It's just that I don't have the opportunity to respond in video form like this very often due to a crazy busy movie schedule, movie reviewing schedule, day job, family, all that good stuff. You've heard it from me a million times. It's not that I don't care. It's just, I got to prioritize. So I'm making this video now as a part one, in fact, of Don't Read the Comments, this month's edition, because frankly, I recorded about five, six, maybe even seven versions of this very video. The problem is, new comments keep coming in. Now, I'm making a part two specifically to deal with the deluge of feedback I received for the RRR slash 800th podcast episode live stream that I did with Earth's Mightiest Critics a few nights ago, which you can check out in the channel description or the episode description below. But yeah, we've gotten so many comments and suggestions on that video alone that I'm going to do a special separate piece for it. I don't know exactly when that'll come out, but probably within the next couple of days, or certainly by the weekend, which means nothing if you're watching this far in the future and it's like Monday. So without further ado, let's get into it. First up, Patrick Doherty writes in with a comment on Accademia Giallo, The House with Laughing Windows from 1976. He said, love this movie. Always great to see and hear people who are enthusiastic about it. It's a classic. Great discussion, guys. Well, thank you, Patrick. I think it's a great discussion as well for a pretty great movie. In fact, I think out of all of the Accademia Giallos and all of the Hammerland and Son of Hammerland episodes and movies we've covered, I don't think there are any stinkers. I was talking about this with AC last week, I think during our Quatermas experiment review. And yeah, they're all good movies that I'm discovering way later in life than I probably should. But yeah, it's definitely a joy, and I'm glad you're enjoying it too. Mr. Valdez writes in saying, hi, just started watching the video and forgot I made comments. That surprised me. Keep up the good work. This, of course, is in response to the last episode of Don't Read the Comments from last month. And yeah, I mean it when I say if you write in with a comment on a Don't Read the Comments video, I will, in fact, read your comment on the next Don't Read the Comments video. Mrs. Chester writes in, also responding to last month's Don't Read the Comments. Thank you for your gracious riposte to my criticism. I was overly harsh. Mispronounced French is my bête noire. Thanks also for your answers to my other comments. Love that you used my remark in the thumbnail. First of all, bête noire is French for black beast. I always love that phrase. And yeah, Mrs. Chester, I did use a still of Dracula saying, pardon my French in the thumbnail because you had taken to task my co-host, Dr. AC, on an episode of Hammerland or Son of Hammerland, I believe, for his mispronunciation of the hey, I just mispronunciation of the word ouvre. And so we had a little mini French lesson, and I'm glad you took it in the spirit in which it was intended. No hard feelings, unless Horror 101 with Dr. AC writes in with a response to Mrs. Chester. Mrs. Chester, if you stick around long enough, you'll frequently hear me sounding like an ignoramus, ha 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 ha, which I believe is the name that she leveled at AC. Now, with regard to the mispronunciation, some of that is a bit of a joke because, as Ian stated, oftentimes when someone is speaking with a true French accent with regard to a single term in an Americanized English conversation, it can sometimes come off as, what did he say? So I will occasionally overly mispronounce intentionally just so people can read the word as I say it. Does that make me sound like an ignoramus in the moment? Perhaps. Does the person understand what I'm trying to say? Hopefully. Do I lose all credibility in the long run? Who knows? Bottom line, thank you for watching and caring enough to comment. Looking forward to future dialogue. Couldn't have said it better myself, AC. Thank you. Gamer Wits writes in with a response to the Prey review I did with David Fowley of Keeping It Real from last month. The Critical Drinker, Nerdrotic, Geeks and Gamers, Yellow Flash, The Quartering, Heels vs. Babyface, and many others with a similar premise. Has a strong incel fan base that they lean heavily for views and monetary gains. Their response is not surprising since these channels' content primarily runs on hate baiting. These people are pretty much the same as the woke culture monster they project to hate. Well, I want to say I'm flattered for being lumped in with these massively huge channels. I'm familiar with all of their content. I don't have a 17th of most of their audience size, not that that particularly matters. But I also do not believe that I have a strong incel fan base either. The people who watch Kicking the Seat and listen to the podcast, I know from personal experience, come from a wide variety of political and social and cultural perspectives, and I appreciate all of them. I also, for the record, appreciate a lot of the content on these channels that you mentioned. Not all of them. I mean, some of the personalities range from, pretty engaging to just keep on that side over there, buddy. But I do appreciate their perspectives because it's unhealthy, I think, to dive into film criticism and only hear, one voice speaking about what is, okay to like in movies. I will say, that I don't think any of these channels would have me on as a panelist because of my profound love for Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and also my appreciation, which has waned in the few years since it came out, of Paul Feig's Ghostbusters 2016, the quote unquote all female Ghostbusters. I really dig those movies. Now, I understand the points that people bring up about them in terms of like being part of the quote unquote woke culture and social justice warrior, propaganda and all that. I get it, and I even agree with some of it, but I also don't accept that they're bad movies. I can defend them to my dying day, and I probably probably will, and have on podcasts and written reviews and things. So you can go check those out on Kicking the Seat. But yeah, I'll just say it. I am not on one political side or the other. I am kind of fed up with all political parties and politics in general. But yeah, it's all a journey. So all I can say is that I watch movies with my own perspective. I try and share that perspective, which doesn't necessarily align with what folks want or believe in, and that's okay because I'm not them. But yeah, thank you for commenting. Mr. Valdez writes in with a reply to Gamer Wits saying, "What?" And then the one writes in again, commenting or also commenting on Gamer Wits' post. This guy going around posting the same comment to all YouTuber that gave bad reaction to Prey. Butt hurt much? LOL. Well, now I'm a little bit hurt because GamerWits, it looks like you've just been comment bombing other channels that post negative reviews of Prey, which I my feeling is you can leave a negative feedback. You can even level, attacks at me or the channel, but at least make them original, at least make them substantive. If you have a problem with something I said about Prey, let me know what it is. We can kind of hash it out here in the comments section. But just kind of copy pasting and leaving things all over the internet, it's lame. It's not effective because, as you can see, there are astute people who catch on, who I guess follow this content and see that you're just not contributing anything of substance. Now, that might sound a bit harsh, but so is your criticism of my channel harsh, and I would say unfounded. Now, if there are any incels out there who enjoy my content, continue enjoying the content, but just don't be hateful about it. Not that incels are inherently hateful. So yes, I prize originality and honesty above all else. And yeah, just do a little better next time, Gamerwits. Thanks. Patrick Doherty writes in again saying, "Great content as always, guys." In a reaction to another Accademia Giallo we did on Eyeball from 1975. Another great movie. Check it out if you haven't. Brian Schwartz writes in with a comment on Minority Report, the 20th anniversary retrospective I did with Armond White a while back. Armand's observations of the scissors violently cutting out the eyes of Abraham Lincoln is fascinating, especially when you consider Lincoln as a symbol of truth, quote unquote, honest Abe. When we see the precog's premonitions, it begs the question, whose truth is this? Indeed, that's one of the things I love about getting these comments, these perspectives, is it causes me to sometimes rethink things that I've already discussed with people and think, wow, I wish I had had that bit of an illusion or an analysis in the conversation because that would have been really fun to analyze. But yeah, Brian, good on you. Bongwater66 leaves a comment on Hammerland Dracula Prince of Darkness. Americans can't talk about British horror movies, especially Dracula with Sir Christopher Lee. That would be a pathetic attempt as well to explain why the terror came from Germany. Gothic novel, dot, 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 bat symbol. First off, I'd like to point out that it is indeed impossible to talk about Dracula with Sir Christopher Lee because he's dead. Sorry, that was a terrible joke, but it's also true. Anyway, I don't subscribe to this point of view that you have to be a part of a certain culture or fandom or race, gender, whatever, in order to comment on any given issue. We are all sentient human beings. We all have perspectives based on our own, perspectives and backgrounds and education and appreciation and artistic taste and all of that stuff. So, if I want to talk about something that I'm not familiar with, yeah, if you're an expert in that particular media or piece of art or culture or political viewpoint, whatever, you might think, hey, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But that shouldn't preclude me from making silly, uneducated statements because I can always learn and become educated. I don't think that's the case with Hammerland. I mean, I'm certainly new to a lot of those movies as well as the Giallo genre, but that's why I have monthly episodes with friends and experts who really love this stuff, so that I can learn and they can educate me, and perhaps I can bring some perspective to their experience with the material. So yeah, I discount that comment out of hand, but I do appreciate you writing in Bongwater66. Hopefully, you'll give the show another shot and realize that we're coming at it from a place of genuine questioning, thirsting for knowledge. AI Hughes writes in with a comment on Watermelon Man. I'm pretty sure Fox News would have covered MLK. Now, it's been a while since I recorded this episode with Pat the Uber critic McDonald, but I assume that it is, from my recollection anyway, that it is some reference that Pat made to Fox News and Martin Luther King Jr. So, yes, I will say, AI Hughes, that without hesitation, if Fox News had been around during the time of Martin Luther King Jr., they would have covered him. Yeah. By the way, if you have never seen Watermelon Man, Criterion recently put out a Melvin Van Peebles box set on Blu-ray, which is essential because it's got a lot of great films on there, it's including Watermelon Man, which I believe that was the first time it was on Blu-ray. So, hell of a comedy and great discussion with Pat. Check that out too. Don Shanahan of Every Movie Has a Lesson and 25 Years Later and the Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast, a dear friend and one of Earth's mightiest critics, writes in to say, wonderful episode and discussion, gentlemen. This is referring, of course, to the E.T., the extraterrestrial 40th anniversary review I did with David Fowley a while back. And yeah, I'm glad you appreciate it. It was a fun discussion. It was great to see E.T. on the big screen again. But I do have to wonder, someone actually downvoted this episode without leaving a comment. I think Don's is the only one on there. So, and I don't think he downvoted it because he seemed to like the episode. So I will say, if you're going to downvote a conversation, especially a film review that both people participating in that review loved, please just let us know where we went wrong. Why would you downvote that unless you hate ET and you can't stand to see people talk about it reverentially? Either way, just I'd appreciate it. Cole Rush, also dear friend and colleague, and the co-host of um, Page to Screen and Late Screening, writes in with a comment on Kicking the Seats 500th subscriber spectacular play button reveal. To be honest, would rather have this than a gold one. He's referring, of course, to the awesome Lego style YouTube play button that I received as a someone who crossed the 500 subscriber threshold. YouTube has gone out of their way, not just to award people with gold buttons for the huge milestones, and silver and ruby and whatever, but for the little guys like us. I mean, I appreciate every time I hit 100 subscribers or a new 100 subscribers, I get this cool package with really unusual play buttons in it. I think the most unusual one was made out of actual pizza, and I would have displayed it, except that before I got to shellac it, it started rotting, and I had to open up all the windows and fumigate my house. So thanks, YouTube. Petty, our Argentinian superfan, writes in with a comment on the Dog Soldiers I reviewed with episode I did with Chad Hawks. Very good movie that I did not know of its existence. Great job in giving visibility to films of this category that have been forgotten. With some looks like clapping emojis. Well, Petty, I am ecstatic that you liked this episode. I'm ecstatic to finally have watched, finally, after 2 decades, Neil Marshall's Dog Soldiers. Chad, who I did the episode with, had been hounding me no pun intended, to watch Dog Soldiers because it's one of his favorite movies. And it wasn't until Scream Factory put out a really cool Blu ray, for which I still owe you all a featured extras segment. Sorry about that. That I came to appreciate and finally understand why he'd been so adamant that I watch the movie. I love Dog Soldiers, and I am happy to share my enthusiasm with it of it with anybody who perhaps hasn't taken the plunge like I did. So yeah, thank you. Meat Man Revengeing writes in with a review, a comment on Funny Pages, the review I did with David Fowley. Great review. Just watched it myself the other day in a dingy little 30-person cinema room tucked into the back of the theater it was in. Perfect viewing conditions, I'd say. It sounds like it. I mean, if you are not familiar with Funny Pages, it came out a couple weeks ago now. It is Owen Klein's sort of homage to mid 90s art house films. And it's not an homage in the way that Stranger Things is an homage, where you put up a bunch of, pop culturally relevant today movie posters in the cool kid's bedroom and say, hey, look, isn't it so 80s? No, this movie feels like it came out in the 1990s, from the way it was shot to the way the performances are orchestrated to the really uncomfortable storyline. But yeah, check it out if it's in a theater near you. Go watch it when it comes on demand. Definitely check that out. And if you can watch it in a small 30-person cinema tucked into the back of a theater, that's a little bit dingy, definitely do it. You will get the full experience. Mr. Poison writes in with a comment on There's Nostalgia Like Nostalgia, Little Faust and Big Halsey from 1970, which I reviewed with Pat the Uber Critic McDonald. Such a strange movie. All the characters' mannerisms and speaking styles are so odd. How did the director, Sidney Furie, ever get them to do that? I always wonder how Redford, who had just become a huge star after Butch and Sundance, decided to do this odd little slice of life movie about such a motley collection of losers. I've seen a quote where he says the script was great and blamed Fury for ruining the movie, but I always liked it. Not sure why though. Yeah, I really dug Little Faust and Big Halsey. Michael J. Pollard and Lauren Hutton also turned in some great performances as the co-stars. But yeah, Redford, this was kind of a revelation to me because I'm so used to seeing him as the kind of the underdog, hero figure, after Butch and Sundance, of course. But he would go on to All the President's Men and even Sneakers, where he was kind of a roguish character. It wasn't until I think Captain America and the Winter Soldier, where he shows up as the bad guy. Spoiler alert! That I really thought of him as anything but the heroic, noble Robert Redford. But this movie, he plays kind of a sleazebag who's into dirt bike racing. It has to be seen to be believed. So yeah, I don't know exactly what prompted him to take this role, but I wish that he had gone in the direction of pursuing these kind of roguish characters, because I think it would have been a wonderful and as varied a career as he ended up having going in the other direction. How did Sidney Fury get him to do that? I imagine by saying action. Kevin Farrell writes in with a comment on Wise Words, an interview with author J.R. Jordan about his book on Robert Wise, which I highly recommend. A wise interview. I see what you did there, and I like it. David Wilt writes in to the Kicking the Seat Meta fan page, formerly the Kicking the Seat Facebook fan page. Flashdance. I love the movie Flashdance. It is such a great classic movie. What makes the movie so fantastic is it not just about a woman in her early 20s struggling jobs working at a construction site as a bar welder during the day and at a bar at night as a hot dancer on stage, and also trying to get into a professional dance academy, but it's also about having self confidence because you have these characters at the bar who have all these goals they want to achieve. Like you have a cook who wants to be a stand up comic and a waitress who wants to be a professional ice skater. David, you write in with all these wonderful movie recommendations for films that I have not seen. Yes, I've never seen Flashdance, but I feel like it's time to fix that. And I might just have to come up with another series just to review and address the movies that you are suggesting for me. So yeah, Flashdance is on the list. I know nothing about it aside from the fact that Jennifer Beals was in it, the famous splashing water scene, and I think it was Irene Cara, the "What a Feeling" music video from the '80s. So yeah, consider this to be on the list and look out. Probably I won't get to it till next year, but yeah, I'm writing all these down and we're gonna talk about all these great films. Speaking of great films, dear friend of the show and dear friend in real life, or IRL as the kids say, Bill Goodmanson writes in with a comment on the Quatermas and the Pit episode I did as part of Son of Hammerland a little bit ago. This is in addressing some questions that Aaron Christensen and I had regarding the invading Martians, or I guess just the Martians who are planting the seeds of humanity. What were their motives, and what was up with the kind of the civil war that they had, and what does that mean for mankind? We were kind of puzzling and struggling with that during the show, but Bill writes in saying the guess that Quatermas puts forth about colonization is that it is a huge project involving thousands of ships. He guesses that the ship they found was a crash in which all the occupants died. He says that London 5 million years ago was swampland. He believed that the colonization was a last ditch effort to save some of their civilization before they went extinct on Mars. As Barbara Judd says, we are the Martians now. At the end of the serial version, Quatermass makes it clear that we as humans owe our racist, genocidal tendencies to our Martian heritage. We need to be more like Roni, who he believes has evolved beyond the Martian inheritance. Well, leave it to Bill to actually take the contents of the movie to help form an opinion about what the motivations of the characters in the movie are. I think Aaron and I were struggling a little bit because there's so much going on in Quatermass in the Pit that it's sometimes hard to keep up with from plot point to plot point. And that's not a criticism of the movie. It's densely packed, but very rich with a lot of different ideas. And we had fun speculating over the meaning and I guess some of the developments that happen in the film, which I think I still hold that those are some fun bits of things to consider and possibilities. But it looks like Bill has come up with a concrete definition that we were a little perhaps grasping for. So thanks, Bill. And that brings us to the end of this edition of Don't Read the Comments. As you saw, there's a lot to go through, but that pales in comparison to the deluge of comments that we've gotten for the RRR live stream, which you'll be able to check out in part two, whenever that is and whatever that is. It should be coming soon. So, again, if you want to have your comments reacted to semi live or as close to real time as you can get with this channel, all you have to do is leave a comment on a YouTube video, even a don't read the comments video, on any of the podcasts, the written reviews, the Facebook/Meta fan page for Kicking the Seat. Basically, any way that you can get in touch with me besides Twitter, because that could get a little bit out of hand if I reply to every tweet. We will, I will reply to everything. No questions, no comments are out of bounds. The only exception I make is for the weird Russian porn comments I sometimes get that I have to immediately delete and report. Those, I mean, I can't reply to them because I'll probably get kicked off of YouTube if I read what they are soliciting. Anyhow, yeah, thank you very much for watching this. And yeah, until next time, take care.